阿婉，今天是2025年11月3日。那主题是特朗普下调对华关税会让企业重新迁回中国吗？因为这一篇它的整体文章比较长，所以我打算的话就是直接给大家来个总结版的，然后再读英文版。那背景就是这样咯。今年的就是最近美国与中国达成新的贸易协议，那特朗普总统决定下调部分中国商品关税，以换取中国在稀土出口和芬太尼问题上的让步。那这一决定也使得美国对华的关税水平在名义上接近或者低于对其他国家的关税，包括印度、巴西、加拿大、瑞士等。所以说，从企业层面的一个反应说，许多的美国企业，包括 Cocons USA 是因关税下调而节省了成本，但也面临着战略上的混乱。那一些企业是原本为了避开高关税，将生产是转移到了印度、越南等地，但新关税的一个政策是会让迁移计划失败。那企业普遍是表示说，暂时不会离开中国市场，因降税带来的不确定性去中国化的动力了，降低了去中国化的动力。那从政策结构上去看这个影响，说特朗普削减对中国的一个部分关税，那芬太尼相关的关税从20%减到10%，同时对印度和巴西征收高达50%的关税。那根据耶鲁大学的一个预算实验室的数据说，2025年美国对中国商品的平均关税是上升了20.2的百分点，那对其他国家是上升17.3的百分点。那一些经济学家如 Brad Steller 认为说，这样的结构并不能有效鼓励企业迁出中国。那特朗普政府的辩解说，白宫称，政策旨在保护国家安全，振兴美国的制造业，并打破中国稀土、半导体等关键领域的垄断。那发言人是强调说，美国的贸易和关税政策正在兑现减少对外国依赖的一个承诺。那至于说中方的策略和成果，是中国的反制措施限制稀土出口，第二个是影响美国汽车产业，那使其在谈判中是取得了优势。那最终的结果呢，就是说中国是获得了较低的关税。那像芬太尼的话，仅10%，同时承诺暂停部分的出口限制，恢复购买美国大豆，加强芬太尼原料的监管。所以说可以来看一下，就是这篇简单做了一个表格，就是说各国的一个关税对比这是算有点异常的那个结构。说，所以说可以看到说，这导致说非中国国家其实反而面临了更高的一个关税，削弱了一个脱中的动机。所以说，这10%的一个降税是不足以去，就是最低也就是英国了和澳大利亚了。但是英国和澳大利亚，你即便把工厂开到那，但是它的就是其他成本是很高的，所以说10%的降税是不足以去改变企业策略。那多数公司的话会继续维持多元化的一个布局。那美国企业是会仍担忧说贸易休战可能再次破裂。东南亚国家，特别是越南，继续受于中国产业外溢，但未来若被征收含中成分税，那还是可能受创的。所以说，特朗普的减税表面上是缓解了中美紧张，但实际上是削弱了美国企业脱离中国的动机。当前的一个关税结构，逻辑混乱且矛盾，盟友受罚更重，中国反而相对受惠。那经济学家普遍是认为说，这种政策使得美国的去中国化进程放缓甚至逆转， 所以说，企业目前选择观望，等待特朗普与习近平明年再会后的一个新的信号。所以说，是吧？就是最终的一个结论说，就是从河内的一个美国商会会长亚当希特科夫也就直接表示说，他认为说，不会有企业从越南和印度等地迁回中国。那真正重要的是一个整体大数。好的，如果你还对这个议题感兴趣的话，那我们一起来，或者对英语感兴趣的话，让我们坚持读一下英文。Will Trump's tariff deal tilt the playing field back toward China? For Xavier McMaster, the general manager of Qualcomm USA, an auto and travel brand, ordering products from his foreign suppliers this year has been a lot like the gambling. After reading the news of trade truce between the United States and China last week, Mr. McMaster was relieved to have finally gotten a win. He estimated that President Trump's decision to lower tariff on Chinese products would save him roughly $30,000 in tariff costs on a shipment the company has coming in from China this week, enough to perhaps hire another seasonal employee in a small Washington town where Qualcomm is based. But the tariff deal came with a downside. Qualcomm has begun shifting some production to India this spring to avoid high tariff on China, but in the past few months, Mr. Trump has raised tariff on India by 50% while dropping tariff on Qualcomm's Chinese goods to 30%, scrambling the company's plans. Mr. McMaster lamented the time he had spent on building up production in India. At least for the time being, he said, I'm not going to spend any more energy trying to get out of China. After a chaotic year of tariff stress and trade deals, the United States has landed, at least temporarily, in a surprising situation. In the face of a potentially devastating trade clash with China, Mr. Trump agreed to cut in half a 20% tariff he had used to punish China for its role in the flood of Fantasia. That has pared back U.S. tariff on certain Chinese products to levels that are nominally near or sometimes below those he has put on products from other countries, including some allies like Switzerland, India, Brazil, and Canada. According to calculations by the Yellow Budget Lab, the average effective tariff on Chinese goods has risen by 20.2 percentage points this year, compared with 17.3 percentage points for the rest of the world. Not every company pays the same tariff, and other calculations that include earlier tariff on China indicate a high overall rate. Chap Brown, an economist at the Peterson Institute, has calculated an average tariff rate for China of 47.6%. But it's not clear how that compares with the US tariff on other countries. Companies that rely on doing business with China have been grateful for the tariff reduction, even as they scramble to pass what the latest deal means to them and how long it will last. Some economists and executives argue that the outcome may slow the move by companies to find alternatives to China, potentially complicating a longer-run effort by U.S. officials to reduce America's dependence on Chinese supply chains. Many companies remain intent on diversify where they source their products and are cautious about tying their fortunes to China over the longer term. Yet the current system of tariffs removes some of the urgency for companies to find factories outside China. It also chips away at the economic advantages that companies had expected from moving factories to Brazil, Vietnam, and India. There isn't a great incentive if there is a final tariff structure to reallocate out of China that bread sector, economies at the Council of Foreign Relations. He argues that the tariff differential between China and other countries was much smaller than Mr. Trump had suggested in his 2024 campaign when he proposed putting a 60% tariff on Chinese goods and a 10 to 20% tariff on products from the rest of the world. Contrary to what many in administration are saying, they haven't ended up with a tariff structure that really encourages relocation out of China, Mr. Satcher said. The Trump administration disputed the idea, saying that its national security tariffs, which impose tax on products like the auto parts, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors, would disproportionately affect China. Officers also argued that the administration was focused on ending China's chokehold on other products like the rare earth. Kush Desai, a White House spokesman, said in a statement that Mr. Trump had pledged to end Americans' foreign reliance by reviving domestic manufacturing and industry. The trade deals and trillions of dollars in investment commitments prove that the Trump administration trade and tariff policies are delivering on this pledge, he said. China's ability to retaliate appears to be one reason that the country is not facing more severe tariffs as India and Brazil are. Mr. Trump has threatened repeatedly to put triple-digit tariffs on China, but Beijing responded by hitting back at the United States where it hurt. It created a system to regulate the export of rare earth minerals and clamp down on those shipments, threatening to shatter U.S. auto plants and other factories. The strategy worked. Xi Jinping, China's top leader, worked out of negotiation with lower Fantasia-related tariffs than countries like Canada, which had tried to placate Mr. Trump. After a meeting in South Korea last week, Mr. Trump agreed to pause new fees on Chinese ships and delay sanctions on thousands of Chinese companies, in addition to cutting a 10% tariff. China said it would suspend the rollout of certain rare earth registrations for a year and return to buying U.S. soybeans. It also said it would crack down on shipments of the chemicals used to make Fantasia. About the numbers, in the wake of last week's agreement, Mr. Trump will have added a 20% tariff to all Chinese imports so far this year. That includes the 10% Fantasia tariff and another 10% tariff that Mr. Trump said is directly as lowering the flow of Chinese imports into the United States. A portion of Chinese imports also face an additional tariff of 7.5 to 25% left over from Mr. Trump's first-term trade war. Chinese products are also hit by Mr. Trump's global tariffs on industries like autos, steel, and aluminum, as well as pre-existing tariffs from the World Trade Organization and Chinese goods quality for few tariff exclusions than many other countries. Although U.S. tariffs on Chinese products are high, American tariffs on certain products from other countries are now sometimes similar or higher for reasons they made little sense. For example, Mr. Trump has imposed a 10% reciprocal tariff on exports from Britain and Australia, now the same reciprocal rate as for China. The administration says that tariff is directly offsetting the U.S. trade deficit, but the United States runs trade surplus with both Britain and Australia, while it racked up a nearly $300 billion trade deficit in goods with China last year. The United States also runs a trade surplus with Brazil, but Mr. Trump has put a 50% tariff on goods from Brazil and India, and spars over Brazil's treatment of a former president and Indian refusal to credit Mr. Trump in making peace with Pakistan. Mr. Trump has also imposed a 39% tariff on Switzerland in response to the country's trade surplus with the United States, even though much of their recent trade has been gold bullion that investors have imported to hedge against tariffs. Canada, America's closest ally, faced a 35% tariff that Mr. Trump imposed in part because of his claim that Canada is a significant source of fentanyl for the United States. While in practice many goods coming from Canada are exempted through the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, the nominal rate is still much higher than China's 10% fentanyl tariff, despite far more fentanyl coming from China than Canada. Countries in Southeast Asia, where many companies have moved their factories after leaving China, typically now face a reciprocal tariff of 19 or 20%, the same as or slightly lower than the baseline tariff on China. Both economies said countries like Vietnam and Cambodia could be heavily affected by the administration's plans to put an additional tax on goods that are made with a certain proportion of Chinese content. A range of strategy. For many companies that have spent years planning an exodus from China, an overall tariff reduction of 10% on goods made in China is not meaningful enough to lead any sudden strategy change. Companies also remain worried that the U.S. trade truce with China could quickly crumble as it has before. 10% isn't quite enough to move the needle, said Cameron Johnson, a supply chain consultant in Shanghai. He said many of his clients are still waiting to see how things play out with Mr. Trump meets with Mr. Xi again in China next year. There is a bit of skepticism about whether this will hold. You are not going to move your factory or production for 6 months and a 10% reduction, Mr. Johnson said, referring to a comment Mr. Trump made last week about visiting Beijing in April. Companies, particularly larger ones, have found ways to weather the volatility in the US-China relationship by diversifying their supply chains through partnerships with factories in neighboring countries like Vietnam or setting up their own factories outside China. Across southern Vietnam to Ho Chi Minh, Chi thousands of sprawling new industry parks have popped up, and the influx of demand for a factory alternative to China. I don't think you will see companies moving out of Vietnam, India, and elsewhere to go back to China. It's a big number that actually matters, says Adam Sitoff, the executive director of the American Chamber of Commerce in Hanoi. Thanks for your listening. Hoping your life fully with happiness and joys. And don't forget to subscribe me and see you.